That's interesting.
Let's listen to the whole.
While the boys next to me doodled on their church bulletin,
Doodling.
Reverend Wright spoke of Sharpsville and Hiroshima,
Doodlers.
the callousness of policymakers in the White House and in the State House.
Mm-hmm.
It is this world, a world where cruise ships throw away more food in a day than most residents of Port-au-Prince see in a year, where white folks' greed runs a world in need, apartheid in one hemisphere, apathy in another hemisphere. That's the world on which hope sits.
Right. That's
But almost as fascinating as the case built on a
By
strong
Bill
foundation
Press?
by Bill Press.
that guy is awesome.
You know, Bill Press.
Do you know who Bill Press is, by the way? Anybody who's, I mean, not you, but those who are enjoying the fourth hour here with us.
Mm-hmm.
Bill Press, maybe not even familiar to you. Bill Press, not exactly a superstar.
No, but no, that's true.
but-
But he did have some stuff to say about Glenn, which
Sure did.
He
Pretty ugly stuff.
It's kind of what you do when you want to get coverage.
Mhm.
You say things about Glenn. So he's got his little coverage, and it's about 8:28. Apparently, he thinks.
Here's
Well,
what
there's an equivalent between you. Find yourself in this picture. He's drawing a picture of what 8:28 is going to be. Find out what role you play in it as you listen in.
I just think sometimes you have to stand up and say, this is wrong. The wrong place. I'm not taking away his, this fuzzy idea, that he can do it anywhere, anytime. No, there's some places where, cheap political tricks should not be allowed. Dan, kind of, to me, this may be going over the top.
Maybe.
I don't think so. I think this is the same as allowing Al-Qaeda to hold a rally on September 11 at Ground Zero.
I mean,
Exactly the same.
Exact same thing.
Exact same
what
thing.
a moronic, idiotic, almost not even sentient life being thing to say. I mean, that's almost.
Well,
That is it's so pathetic.
You're just trying to distract from the fact that Tea Party members are constantly using negative imagery, violent imagery against their opponents. Certainly, no equivalence here of a guy on the left saying essentially, you listeners of this program of Glenn Beck that go to 828 are members of Al Qaeda. Or the equivalent of members of Al Qaeda. Certainly no possible way that they're making that leap. In fact, he did point out it wasn't a leap, it was the exact same thing. There's no need for analogy or guessing at what he believes. He said it was the exact same thing. This is interesting. Although I will say this, Pat, and this is something that I think a lot of people have overlooked, which is, Bill Press doing this, I think it's a uniquely American thing. Not only is he able to say, his, whatever he wants in the public sphere, which is fantastic, but also there's that element of a man who has failed over and over again to grip anyone's attention, but keeps trying. He is out there just like Edison. I mean, Edison tried to invent the light bulb. He failed and 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 failed until at one point he finally was able to come up with the idea.
And it's even worse. It's even worse than that for Bill Press because he continues to fail and has yet to succeed. There's no success.
No, there's no success, but
Right.
he keeps failing.
Yes.
And but he doesn't stop trying. He doesn't stop saying stupid things, hoping someone will notice him. He keeps just going and going and going. Doesn't matter how many obstacles of complete failure appear in this man's career. He will not stop the utter failure that has defined his entire life, and he just keeps going through it. He pushes through it. He keeps saying things as if people care. You have to admire that. That is something that only in America will you see that sort of perseverance to just keep going through the constant quicksand of failure that has enveloped his life. It is such an amazing character trait to just see the
So we should be proud, really? We should be really be proud and celebrate Bill Press and his failure.
I think so.
His massive, unbelievable, unmitigated, unquestioned failure.
Right.
Like he's a total miserable loser of a human being.
Yes.
And yet, he's still out there throwing out outrageously stupid and moronic statements.
Just praying that someone will notice. And look, we've noticed.
We noticed.
We noticed today, and that is something I think that is a great moment
So let us
in
say
America.
it. Good for you, Bill.
Good, Bill.
And look, there's people like that on the right, too, that are doing the same thing with Glenn. trying to exploit him
it's adorable
for their own little purposes, for their own cuteness, to maybe glorify their own ratings. It's not working, because we're not taking the bait on the actual show and talking about them, and we're not even saying their names on this show, which is what they want so desperately, because the people in question have no television show, and it eats away at them. It eats away at the very fiber of their being. They can't take it. And they languish in places like San Francisco. And they're eaten alive like a cancer that just is grown and is just gobbling up their organs right now. And it's gotten to the point where sometimes they'll spend their whole show talking about their idiotic, jealous rage for Glenn.
I can't believe what I'm watching. How did this happen on my computer? It's him again. Again, it's Glenn Beck with a blackboard. How does this happen everywhere I click somewhere? There is this illiterate moron with a blackboard and chalk trying to be a college teacher.
That's weird.
It's sad.
This is such a well-detailed hypothetical example.
I'm just throwing it out there as if
so well-detailed.
I don't want to name names or cities necessarily, but it's a place like San Francisco. And maybe some old crotchety New York accented type, washed up biochemist or scientist or whatever. I don't know. Maybe he just looked at plants for the first part of his life.
Okay.
One of those type of guys.
This is a really detailed profile. I don't know.
I get the skin in my head.
That's creativity.
It's creative.
There. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Because, nobody like that would ever exist.
It doesn't seem like a believable character.
Because if they did, they'd be like 20th place in the ratings in every city they existed. And they'd be using Glenn for their own benefit because it just eats them alive that they're not number 3 on in the radio ratings. And they have no television show whatsoever. Maybe they even blew their only shot.
Wow!
In this fantasy land that I'm creating.
Thought this out really well.
Yeah, it's not really. I'm just kind of off the top of my head.
Okay, because it seems.
Yeah, because I haven't really even thought about it. Just a hypothetical.
I missed this. The hypothetical evidence you're talking about. I'm sure it was fascinating.
Yeah, it was fascinating.
I'm not a listener to any of these hypothetical type shows, but
no one is because they don't exist. I'm just saying.
Yeah, obviously.
As an example, someone like that.
As an example, that's a very detailed example.
Some bitter old man who just can't quite
going
break
back
through.
into it again. You seem
some
to be
bitter, nasty, washed-up has-been who really never was, but wants to be so bad it just eats him alive.
Is this the sort of bitter has-been that is able at any time in their entire life to travel to England?
No, I would think.
I
would think they're so bitter and say such outrageous things from time to time that they may have even been banned at one time from traveling, even though had no plans to go to England.
No.
But this person might have made a huge deal out of not being able to go.
That's wow.
And it's since been rescinded. But again, that's just purely hypothetical. I don't have anybody specific in mind.
No, obviously. You've been very clear about that throughout.
I've said in the past, look, this notion that I've got anybody in mind as I'm laying out this hypothetical is just silly and ridiculous.
It is fascinating to see, though. I will say these hypotheticals are very fascinating.
They
because,
are.
Honestly, we've gone through generally our entire careers here. There's a lot of other shows that have said crap about us and about Glenn specifically. And, whatever. You expect it from the level of Keith Olbermann. You accept it from Chris Matthews and stuff. But that's why I think it's worth bringing up occasionally when someone like the Weekly Standard, this is not a hypothetical, trashes Glenn with absolutely nothing.
Right.
When you do that, look, I get Keith Olbermann literally is paid his salary to take conservatives out of context. That is what he gets his money for. Yeah. And you know what? There's a market for it, albeit small. And he is able to capitalize on that tiny, tiny dwindling market.
Yeah.
But you expect it from there. I don't understand. I don't get it.
I don't either. I really don't.
Yeah.
There's no reason to go to cannibalize each other. There's no reason.
I don't understand it. And I don't understand. There's this, and you've been in radio a long time, Pat. Hundreds of thousands of years.
Yeah.
And
seems like
it does seem like it makes you Every year in radio seems like several.
Uh-huh.
But there was a legitimate movement, I'd say, in radio in, I don't know, early 90s-ish, where that's what you did. You went on and you kind of trashed the other shows, and you were a tough guy, and you got on the air. And I mean, it was a lot of people were doing it in 1992 or 1988.
Started kind of, I think, by Howard Stern.
Yeah, it was kind of like the fusion of Stern, and then how they took the Stern model and moved it into, tried to, kind of bring it into talk radio.
Yep.
So you had a lot of people who were like angry and tough, and they were talking and trashing the other shows, and I'm better than that show, and that guy's stealing my material, and this guy.